The power of practice, the size of your spirit. Wendy was a tiny woman with an outsized presence and my instructor in leadership embodiment. She could cross 9 time zones and still show up light as a feather and sharp as a tack. And at the dojo, she could throw men half her age and twice her size. What was the source of her power? A 7th-degree black belt in martial arts, decades of mindfulness practice, and the strength of her intentions. She didn't waste energy. She moved in straight. Size matters, they say in the dojo. Not the size of your biceps, but the size of your spirit. Meaning our capacity to open to the energy that flows through the universe and all living beings. The life force, the ki, or chi. Thus, we began every practice by centering, connecting the embodied and the transcendent. At the start of a workshop at Genentech, Salesforce, or NASA, Wendy would say, "We are not going to use the F word here. We are not going to ask you to talk about your feelings. That's because leadership embodiment is not based on psychology, but on martial arts. And in martial arts, there's a lot going on, and it's very fast. You get attacked over and over again, and you learn to stay relaxed at that fast pace and to adapt and be creative." Then she would lead a series of Aikido-inspired drills and debriefs, which can be found in her book with Janet Crawford. Leadership Embodiment, How the Way We Sit and Stand Can Change the Way We Think and Speak. In 2015, I was troubled by 2 trends and looking for a way to help. One was the way leaders amplified stress by talking about how busy they were, as if that were a badge of honor. The other was that leaders, with the proliferation in MBAs, were becoming more top-heavy. They were savvy on strategy and skilled at managing the message, but they struggled to connect. The words were there, but there was no voice. As a former physical therapist, I resonated with Wendy's work. Embodied leadership was deeper than physical intelligence. It was physiological. In my 30 years in leadership, practicing it, teaching it, earning a PhD in human and organizational systems, this was like the final piece in the puzzle. One Saturday morning, I was leading a workshop on leadership embodiment with a few friends, including the CFO of a Fortune 500 company, the vice provost from a top university, and the CEO of a global NGO. They were all profoundly purpose-driven and under a lot of pressure. We were there to turn this pressure into practice. We began by centering. Try this with me. Inhale up, lengthen the spine toward the sky. Exhale down the front. Think of something that makes you smile. Extend your personal space out into the room, filling all 4 corners. Allow your shoulders to soften. And ask yourself, what would it be like if there was just a little more ease in my body right now? For 4 hours, we worked with different partners, and their role was to get us off-center, with a frown, a gesture, a push, or a word. Our job was to notice and return to center. As we did the drills, the room filled with wows and woes, for it's a wonder how light we can be when we open to flow. We concluded by thinking about an upcoming high-stakes event. The CEO reflected on her trip to Davos, where she would be attending a small gathering with some of the most powerful business and government leaders in the world. On her way back from the Alps, she sent us an email. At the outset, my imposter feeling was in the red zone, so I stepped aside, took a deep breath, and rejigged my mind. The centering totally changed the situation. I owned my space and place in the room and engaged with everybody. Then, as the host suddenly called on me to take the floor, without even a minute of prep, I recentered, activated the quality of grace, and gave a powerful, slightly humorous 2-minute presentation. Pure presence. The voice is embodied. It begins with the breath. A full breath allows for relaxation, and with relaxation comes resonance. It reverberates with who we are and what we care deeply about. The breath is the gateway to presence. Understanding practice. The power of practice is embodied intention. When we calm the body, we calm the mind. When we move the body, we move the mind. When we open our arms, we open our heart. When we point, we direct attention. In The Body, a Guide for Occupants, Bill Bryson writes that it takes 7 billion atoms to make you, and for the length of your existence, they will build and maintain all the countless systems and structures necessary to keep you humming, to let you enjoy that rare and supremely agreeable condition known as life. Let us treasure this condition as long as it lasts, for it does have an expiration date. But Bryson also reminds us that the body is the product of 3 billion years of evolutionary tweaks and changes, and there are some annoying anachronisms. Beyond our control are 2 distinct patterns. One is reactive, the other resourceful. One gets us into trouble, the other gets us out. Anything can set us off. Running late, a curt response, or a presentation being cut short. That's human, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it becomes a problem when we indulge our emotions, amplify the drama, and spread it around. What's also human is our capacity to return to center. From there, we can dial up the urgency or slow things down, seek more information, or act decisively. The more we practice centering, the faster we recover, and speed matters. Because when triggered, we leap up Argyris's ladder of inference, moving from simple observation to self-righteous indignation. Then others get defensive, and so it goes. Thankfully, we have a choice. Notice instantly, center, and smile. That's physiological intelligence. Moving with confidence. Embodied leadership is about inner coherence, which is central to the aliveness effect. When the head, heart, and core are united, we are powerful. When split, we lose power. Here's how it works. When making a decision, the head considers the data. Is it the rational thing to do? The heart cares about vitality. Is it the right thing to do? The core does a gut check. Do we have the will to see it through? When all 3 are all in, we are internally coherent. We move with authority. We show grace under pressure. We have executive presence. Officiating the building. After my second session with a global IT leadership team, one of the leaders, Kevin, sent me an email. In his other life, Kevin was an ice hockey official who had officiated games with NHL professionals in the Olympics. Un-ice professionals like Kevin must project confidence from something as seemingly benign as the pregame handshake to a championship game in which all hell breaks loose during double overtime. As Kevin said in his email, sometimes speaking from the head is all that is required. A simple recitation of the rule without any kind of attached emotion is sufficient. Other times, we need to bring passion to our calls to show that our level of engagement in the game is equal to that of the players and coaches. At all times, we must communicate with confidence. Confidence lies at the core, the body's center of gravity, the source of stability. It's one thing to manage the pace of the game and the heat between players, but what about the fans? In our next session, Kevin took us beyond the rink to the entire arena. Officials must have the capacity to contain the energy of everyone. They call it officiating the building. I call it leading with aliveness. Each gesture free from hesitation, each move decisive, each moment complete. Grace under pressure. Now to the girl in the arena to whom playing was like flying, the woman who helps others find their wings. Sheila was there when I asked the board members of Urban Promise International about the source of optimal performance. Does it lie in the person or in the dynamics of the team? She raised her hand and shared her story. One year, Sheila didn't particularly like the other players on her junior high basketball team. They weren't friends or anything, but they played hard and they played well, and they went on to an undefeated season. Then her face lit up. There is nothing like an undefeated season. Later, Sheila told me that the season wasn't special just because they won. It was also because they moved as one. When I was open, she said, the ball was there, and I had that feeling of flight when I elevated to layups and in how I came down. I loved the physicality of it. I loved running up and down the court, and when I was off the ground completely, it was like I was flying. What about her coach? Her features softened. I loved and adored her, Sheila said. She wasn't sweet and nice. There was none of that. But she saw me. She would look into my eyes and state things very clearly, and I knew what I needed to do to be my best. She just saw me. Being seen by someone we respect is a gift, and we can never pay it back. But we can pay it forward, and we do so each time we see someone's worth and potential so clearly that they come to see it in themselves. Executive presence. Seeing the next generation of leaders and helping them on their way has been a topic of conversation for Klaus and me since he was president of Microsoft in Europe and I led their one-year talent experience. In recent years, Klaus has chaired several boards and served on many more. I asked him what he looks for when recruiting a new CEO. He wants leaders who are genuinely interested in people because that's the source of followership and the reason AI can never lead. Klaus looks for those who want to know others as human beings, who see them. How does he discern that in an interview? With this question. Tell me about the people you have recruited and worked with who later in life reach positions that were equal to or greater than the one you have. Few can answer it well, but for those who do, their stories tell him everything. They reveal their ability to spot future leaders, attract people of that caliber, and work alongside them. They coach and guide them, and then when they no longer have the runway for that leader to grow, they help them on their way. Such candidates are leading with aliveness, and their network grows. With the power of practice, we gain confidence. From confidence comes relaxation and flow, then timing and speed. The power is in the full-bodied presence of the referee, in the athlete in a state of flow, and in the incisive question of a chairperson. Walking toward the sword. "I don't know why you prepare so much," Wendy said. I dismissed her comment, for being well prepared is a virtue where I come from. Then she'd bring it up again, and I'd explain how it allowed me to be more present during the session. She didn't buy it. "What's your problem with me preparing so much?" I asked. Wendy looked me straight in the eye. "You can't grow into your potential." That got my attention. When I was younger, people would speak to my potential all the time, but it had been ages since anyone had done so. We weren't done with the conversation, though. "You can't tell me that with your experience, you couldn't show up unprepared and still lead a powerful session," Wendy said sometime later. Was that true? My head nodded, my heart said yes, and the core was a thumbs up. It was unanimous. So why did I prepare so much? The breakthrough came when I asked myself a slightly different question. What is the difference between practice and excessive preparation? Here's what I've learned. Practice expands our capacity to meet the moment as it is. Preparation anticipates problems and manages outcomes. Practice builds confidence. Over-preparation reveals a lack of it. Any irritation can become a prompt to practice. When stopping at a red light, slow down the exhale. When waiting in line, do a centering. When climbing the stairs, imagine a tailwind. If getting bored, run backward. Simply put, notice the strain. Shift. Move with ease. As we emerged from the pandemic, Wendy led her first retreat at my place in Spain. It would also be the last time we were to practice together, though she didn't know it and neither did I. When she arrived, her ribs were sore, and we thought maybe she had pulled a muscle. Soon after, we learned it was cancer. Even so, she gave us the gift of walking toward the sword, a way of training our capacity to face something fierce and deadly. It was a solemn ritual, done in silence, at the end of every retreat. Wendy would walk to the center of the room with her bocan, a wooden sword, and assume the menacing posture of a warrior. Our task was to be present to our fear, center, and step forward. One by one, we'd stand a few feet before her and bow. As she lifted the sword above her head, we'd walk straight toward her, and as she made the cut as if to split our skull, we'd find the space to pass, pivot, and pause right behind her. We would then circle each other, her fierceness palpable, and do it again. In such moments, time slows down. We are tuned to the world around us. We are open a split second before something happens, anticipating rather than reacting, alert and at ease. Wendy was my sensei for 7 years, and she saw me. This chapter is dedicated to her. What power do I actually have? BJ Fogg, who helped design the dopamine loops behind LinkedIn and Instagram, is the founder of Stanford's Persuasive Technology Lab. In 2009, he renamed it the Behavior Design Lab to focus on agency and wellness. In his words, emotions create habits. Not repetition, not frequency, not fairy dust. Emotions. Positive emotions immediately release dopamine, so we do the same thing again, and soon we have a habit. This is the way to outsmart the algorithms and lead with aliveness. We have the power to do a centering. Use a prompt, center, and smile. Clarify our intention before entering a meeting. Close the door and check with the head, heart, and core for inner coherence. The challenge is this: we keep piling on. We push and plan and berate ourselves when we fall short. But the power of practice is not about discipline. Instead, all it takes is a predictable prompt, a tiny practice, and a touch of dopamine.